Now let's make additional two lines. They are slanted, so one line is here on the right side, and the second line is on the left side, here. They are different in size and in position. And now I'm making some dots inside the lines to show the body parts is the same. I'm making one dot here and the second dot here. Two top parts, they are approximately of the same size, and the third part is bigger. Now let's make these circles here. And the second circle is the head of the second ferret. Then we are making half oval here on the second section. This will be the top part of the body. And of course, let's do the same here for the second ferret, like this. Then here we have the bottom part of the body, and let's make again a big oval. And I'm making it like this, so the top part of this oval is narrow and the bottom part is wider than the top part. And then we are making additional ovals here at the bottom. So here we will draw paws later. And of course, let's make the lines for the tail. The lines are just wavy like, and the tail is looking up. And the lines, I'm making the oval-like lines here for the upper paws. So the first one and the second one. They are small, they are not that big like other ovals. And the same let's do for the second ferret. So I just make the first oval here for the paw. And then here on the left side will be the second paw. Okay, so now let's move on and let's make the lines inside the circle. So here I'm just making one line here in the center, and it is slanted to the opposite side. And then I'm making one more line and they are crossing each other. And here I'm just making the oval-like form again for the face and for the cheeks and for the nose. So the nose is here right in the middle of two lines. And then I'm just making the lines to the sides. They are round, they are circle-like, and they are identifying cheeks. And of course I'm making dots for the eyes here. The eyes are small, but they are circle-like. And the lines for the ears, so I'm placing them at the top part of the head and the ears themselves. So also let's make the lines to show the fur, and I'm making the fur with the zigzag motions, zigzag lines. I try to show that we have a beautiful texture of the fur. Now let's move on and let's make the second head. Great, and now let's move on and let's make the lines for the sweaters. So we have the sweaters there on the ferrets. And I'm making the identifying lines and the top parts and the bottom parts of the fur sweater. So some lines for the beautiful shape. And of course, after that, let's make some lines additional on the body to show the fur. So again, I'm just using the zigzag lines to make it. And I'm just adding several lines here at the bottom part. Now I'm going to add some additional lines on the top paw. So this one, I'm making this ending, this edge looking like the oval. And then we are just continuing making the paw and connecting everything together and making some lines inside the first small oval just to show the paw. Let's make it more visible as well, and the lines inside the face to show the color on the face. So we have some different colors there, brown and white. So the same thing I will do for the second ferret. So great, and after the tail, let's make some lines on the sweater. So here I'm making the hearts. So after that, I'm just adding additional lines underneath the ferrets to show the blanket that they are lying on. So now let's begin making the outline with this ferret, and I start with the face. And here we have the fur. That means that we are making the line again with the zigzag motions. And I'm covering the eyes entirely with the black liner, so they are black. And also I'm adding 2 dots on the nose, so that is how I'm just making smellers. And then we are making the outline of the sweater. And then when we are making the paw of this ferret, again, I'm just showing the zigzag line for the fur texture and making the fur texture. So here as well, I'm making the lines. Sometimes we can go on the body. Okay, so now let's do the same for the second ferret, and here we have the sweater parts. I'm showing the face outline here. In some areas we have the simple line, but then we are again making the line for the fur. So ears, they are just outlined with simple line, with flat line. And then the lines here at the bottom of the face I'm making with fur. And then here I'm making the outline of the paw and the lines here at the bottom and the tail. Great, so now I'm making the lines for the folds on the blanket and then the nose. The nose is like a small triangle. And then the cheeks. So I just want to remind you that the right cheek should be bigger and the left one is smaller. Here, the mouth as well. And I'm covering the eyes here with the black liner. So now I just want to add some additional lines on the fur along the contour. So the outline is done, and now I'm picking the eraser. I'm using the knittable eraser from Faber-Castell, like this one. You can use any other eraser, just use it carefully in order not to damage the watercolor paper. And now let's erase all the pencil. And the first color will be mixture of the red plus ochre and maybe a bit of the brown. So we are getting the color like this one, and I'm adding just 1 drop of black and diluting the color with water. So let's make the first layer on the first ferret, and I'm making short lines, short strokes like this, and I'm making them along the contour. Sometimes I'm using a bit darker color that I have on my palette. And I'm trying to leave some white areas between these strokes. Then I'm picking the ochre color and I'm adding it as well on the sides and a bit in the middle. So the same thing I will do for the second ferret, and I'm starting with the lighter brown and then with the darker lines here along the contour. And after that, after adding some lines here, I'm just diluting them with water using my wet brush like this. In the center we have the lighter area, and then I'm adding some ochre shades as well. Great, and now I'm adding additional ochre strokes on the first layer, just in some places here on the paws and here under the sweater as well. So now let's mix the darker color. I'm using the red plus I'm using black, but if you don't have black color, you can just use the dark brown, for example, burnt umber for it, and just mix it a bit with the red. So I'm using this one for the paws, and I'm making again short strokes, short lines, and I'm leaving some white spots. Also, I'm adding some ochre color for beautiful shades and on the edges of the paws. So for the paws of the second ferret, let's do the same. So now I'm making the second layer in some areas of the paws, so actually at the bottom lines of it. And then we are moving on, and let's start with this one. I'm using the same color, so it is actually the ochre color diluted with water and the brown color again diluted with water. so they are light, the colors are light. And also let's do the same for this one, for this ferret. Central area of the face, white. So the nose and the cheeks, they are white. Great, so now let's mix again some darker brown color. I'm using black for it. And just a reminder that if you don't have black color, just use the darker brown for it. And you can use the red as well for a mixture. And I'm making additional strokes on the face, and I will do some shadows there. So here on the sides, then on the top part, we are giving the idea, we are depicting the idea of the fur. So let's make the darker contour as well here, and try to make small strokes here. And I'm making the dry brush effect on the fur, and I'm pressing on my brush and I'm picking the color, and then I'm making short lines and strokes on the ferrets, making the fur texture just like this. You can see that the brush is just looking like a fan brush. By the way, here I'm just making the coloring of the paws, and here I don't have dry brush effect. And then on the tail, again, I'm making the dry brush effect. So the same I will do here for the second ferret. I'm working only with the top part of the bristles. And again, here we have the paws, and I'm just covering them. And the same let's do for the paws of the previous ferret. So great, now I'm adding additional lines on the tail as well, and then adding some shadows here. And again, I just use the same dark color, and I want to add additional layer and making the dry brush on the face. And make the dry brush effect. So now I'm just making the color on the face darker, using the dark brown. And adding just several strokes here on the nose and on the second one, of course. So let's begin with the bottom part. And we are adding some shadows on the sides. Okay, so the same I will do with the hearts and with the top part of the sweaters. So I want to start with this one, with the left one. I'm making short lines, short vertical lines inside the heart, and the same for the second heart here. Now I'm picking the darker red, and I'm adding some additional lines on the sides of the heart. So now I will do the same for the left side. And now I just want to add additional shadows on the sweater. So we have light blue color mixed with pink, and we are making the strokes like this on the sweaters. And I will add the color here on the faces. So I'm making the lines darker and some fur on the face, on the sides, and inside the ears, and around the face as well, and on the second ferret as well. And then I will use the same color for making some areas darker. So I'm adding additional shadows here on the face, just to emphasize the cheeks and the mouth here, and on the second ferret as well. So I try to make everything with small strokes. By the way, now I'm using the brown color as well. I'm making some shadows on the face, on the left side, here just behind the nose and the cheeks, just to show that we have some kind of a shadow there. And we are using and mixing now the grayish blue. So we are making several strokes here between the ferrets and under the ferrets, and we are just emphasizing the lines, the folds, everything that we have there underneath the ferrets. Great, so now I'm mixing again the blue color, so it is the ultramarine plus grayish ultramarine, and I'm adding additional lines, additional strokes on the sweater just to show the knitted texture. I just want to make it more visible, more contrasty. And now I'm using the darker color again, so I'm mixing the ultramarine and brown and adding darker strokes here on the sides of the sweater, of this one and of the second one. Now I'm using the dark pink color, so you can actually mix the pink plus blue, or maybe add a bit of the red as well. And with this color I'm just making additional shadow on the nose and on the second nose as well. Now I'm making the red plus dark brown color and adding additional strokes on the hearts here, on the sides, and the same for the second heart. So great, now the hearts are looking knitted on the sweater and they are beautiful. Now let's make some splashes. I'm using the blue color and I'm preparing the color, diluting it with water, and then tapping on my brush with finger. So just like this, and I'm going all over the sketch. Great, so my sketch is completely dry. Now let's use the black liner and let's make some lines darker and bolder. So here I'm making some additions on the face, on the nose, on the eyes, and along the contour of the face and head, and of course along the paws. So here again I'm just making more contrast and making the smile here more visible and the eye darker, and the lines here under the ferret. So under the ferret we have the shadow area. That means that we need to make it darker as well in the liner. So some areas, they are darker when they are touching the surface or the blanket that they are lying on. And for the lines here on the second ferret as well. So now I'm making the last lines for the face and for the fur texture here and on the spots where we have the shadows, like this. And now we are picking the white pen. So here I'm just making the cheeks more visible. So I'm adding highlighted areas there. So we have added the darker lines, and now I'm just adding again like a zigzag lines on the fur, on the face. So now I'm making the cheeks of the second ferret, making the lines more contrasty. So now I'm adding some lines on the ferrets, not only on the faces and on the ears, on the eyes, but also we can add some lines on the fur. Great, our sketch is done. I hope you enjoyed the lesson and feel inspired to create more. You can watch the full version of this lesson on my Patreon, the link in the description. See you in my next lessons.